I'm back. This is another episode of All or Not according to Jack. And so everybody saw yesterday that I put up my ranking the albums of Judas Priest. Uh, now I had, when I recorded that, and again, that was about 4.5 months in the making. At that time, I had no idea that there would be news the very next day about Judas Priest's status with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I woke up yesterday morning. I was about to put my ranking of the albums up, for a premiere. And then I see that, oh, Judas Priest is inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Look right over my right shoulder there. I immediately saw that. And Rob Halford himself said that they were beyond thrilled that they were inducted. So initially, I was ecstatic that, the powers that be at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally got off their butts and did the right thing and brought in a very deserving band, albeit a band that, maybe they didn't sell as many records as, Metallica or Michael Jackson or Pink Floyd. But you know what? They were very highly influential to a lot of rock and roll bands and metal bands, throughout the 80s, 90s, and well beyond. And they definitely deserve to be in there. So I did a little more digging, and I come to find out that I looked at the inductee list, and I am viewing my spreadsheet to gather some information. So I see that for 2022, the following were inducted: Pat Benatar, Duran Duran, Eminem, The Eurythmics, Dolly Parton, Lionel Richie, and Carly Simon. But then Judas Priest, they're not in the performance list. Instead, they're in what they call the musical excellence category. So what does that mean? Should I be happy about that? Is that a special award? Is it a consolation prize? A participation trophy, as some people said yesterday? I mean, at first I was happy. Now I have to be honest. I don't think I am so happy. It's like Jan Wenner and the powers that be. All they did was they threw us a bone to okay, now away with you. We don't want to hear about it anymore. We put them in under this category where they might not have got in under ordinary means. So now go get lost. Go buy your tickets to the to the induction ceremony or the Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. So my point being, you have bands like the Sex Pistols in there, a band that put out one album. I mean, granted, they were probably very important to punk rock back in the mid to late 70s. What I find ironic about the Sex Pistols is that Jan Wenner himself inducted them, and you know what? They hated the whole thing. They called the whole thing a piss stain, and they refused to accept their award. So I guess that one's for you, Mr. Wenner. But in any event, and I know this has been said a lot before. You have all these bands in there. Some not so deserving. Like for example, back in I think it was 2016. I'm just going to look it up. Let's go to 2016. Yes, so 2016, both Pete Pardo and I actually went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. It was at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. We saw the following get inducted. We saw Cheap Trick, Chicago, Deep Purple, NWA, and the Steve Miller Band. rather just Steve Miller. It wasn't his band, it was just him. So he was already a little ornery and not happy about that. I know the Chicago's drummer Danny Serafine voiced his displeasure that night because he felt like somebody was trying to rush him through his speech. But and Pete and I, our main goal was to see Chicago and Deep Purple inducted that night, so they were our top two. But what struck me was you have a band like Cheap Trick, who, granted, they're the first band I ever saw in concert, and I was into them, right around the Cheap Trick at Budokan era. They, had a monumental album, but I mean, what else did they do? They, after they put out the album Dream Police, they had a hit song The Flame and a couple other little things. They did this theme song of that 70s show, but I mean, here they are in the 90s, 2000s, and beyond. I saw them twice in concert as an opening band in the last, 10 to 15 years. An opening band, opening for Aerosmith, opening for Heart and Journey. A band that's up there playing 8 or 9 songs for about 45 minutes every night, and you're inducting them into the Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, you have other very deserving bands that are still selling out arenas like Iron Maiden. I mean, what the hell? Anywho, then you got a band like T-Rex or Lou Reed. I mean, one-hit wonders, for God's sake, and you're inducting them. I mean, granted, Lou Reed, he was with the Velvet Underground, which I guess had a little bit of a bigger following, but Lou Reed is a solo artist. He had that one song. What else did he do? I mean, they have made strides over the years. I mean, some bands that were inducted, I'm very happy about, like my fellow Long Islander Billy Joel got in 1999. 2004, ZZ Top got in. 2006, Skinner got in. Very happy about that. Well, I was really happy. Drink break. Rush got in 2013, and my kudos to Alex Lifeson for his monologue, and his speech was all blah 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 blah. But that's stuck in Mr. Winter's craw. But good for you, Alex. 2014, Kiss got inducted. That was very, I was elated, but Paul Stanley said it best. He said it became a joke that they wouldn't induct us. But basically what happened was it took on a life of its own, so much so that they had to put us in. Otherwise, it would really, how would you say, it would really be a poke at their credibility. So they had to put us in. And then he was talking about how, how the Rock Hall is elitist, and, that they shouldn't be spoon feeding their fans and, their prospective patrons who might go to the, inductions or to the Hall of Fame itself. You have to listen to the people. You can't just have your little panel of 30 or 40 people putting in your pet interests. Oh, I like this band and I like this band. And Paul had a very good point. He, let's see, let me just look up. He had a point about the Grateful Dead. So let's just take them for. You had, oops, let's go back. Just bear with me a second, please. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12. 12 people inducted for the Grateful Dead. And this is back in 1994. 1994. I mean, this was, when you're still in. So basically, let's go back into history. I'm not going to question all the early. They started inducting in 1986. Um, they, I'm not going to question who they put in those first few years, because basically they laid the foundation for rock and roll. Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, Fats Domino, Everly Brothers, which I understand. I think my father liked them. Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Elvis Presley. You know what? I'm not going to question that. They all are very deserving. They all laid the foundation for what would, be coined the phrase rock and roll. Second year also, the Coasters, Eddie Cochran, Bo Diddley, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, Bill Haley, B.B. King, etc., Roy Orbison, Carl Perkins, etc., etc. But and they were trying. Apparently, they were trying to play catch up. Then you had all these British invasion bands. You had the Yardbirds, Cream, Creedence, the Doors, the Who, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. Meanwhile, as you're starting to break out into the more album-oriented rock of the '70s, they had Grateful Dead right away. With 12 inductees. And that brings me back to what Paul Stanley said. He was a little dismayed about the fact that it was only the 4 original members that were inducted. What happened to Eric Carr? I mean, after, Peter Criss, they had to let him go because of drug problems and, ego problems. So they brought in Eric Carr, and he was a very stabling influence for about 10 years. And he was a good drummer. And he did whatever they asked, never caused a problem. Paul and Gene would have liked to have seen him inducted, but no. We only want the original 4, and we only want the original 4 to perform. So Paul's like, you know what? Fuck it. We'll just accept our award because we're doing it for the fans, but that's it. What he said was very right about them being elitist. And then what else did I want to talk about? So other bands that I was very happy about seeing. 2017, Yes got inducted. So let's examine this. You have both heavy metal and progressive rock, very poorly underrepresented. But it actually, I think that prog rock is actually even worse in the unrepresented category. So let's look at metal. You got 2003, AC/DC got in, very deserving. You know what? They bludgeon you over the head with their hard rock metal style. They're very unapologetic. They give you what they give you. You know what to expect. And you know what? From the mid '70s until albums they put out today, you know what you're going to get, and it's all very good. I would give all their albums an 8 out of 10 or better. 2006, Black Sabbath got in. That would be a miscarriage of justice if they weren't in, because they basically invented metal. 2009, Metallica. I mean, they're in because they basically sold a ton of records. You look at their history, and me and a lot of my friends and a lot of my peers and colleagues over on the other shows, it's a well-known fact that basically after the Black Album, they just tanked, or rather they sold out and tried to be more appealing to the younger generation. And it was, it's just not old school metal anymore. 2012, Guns N' Roses, a band who, put out a monumental album, Appetite for Destruction. I believe they won a Grammy for that, and got cut off the air because they couldn't keep their mouths shut with the expletives and cursing. But I mean, great band, but honestly, what did they do? That was really only their big album. Then you have Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, who have basically bludgeoned us over the head over the years with great albums. You have Judas Priest, even in 2018, with a great album called Firepower. Iron Maiden, a great album called Book of Souls. This latest one is kind of iffy. Some love it, some not so much. But, at least the first couple of songs I thought showed some real promise. But the bottom line is, these are bands that are still delivering the goods for their fans. And, how could you not recognize them? Another quotable from Paul Stanley about Iron Maiden, it's like, how could this institution just ignore them and not put them in, for such a great band? And, people hear the term heavy metal and it scares them away. Just give it a listen, folks. I mean, there's more to it than just, three chords. You got to listen to the great soloing. You got to, there is a lot of melody in it. Iron Maiden, with these last couple albums, they've expanded to like these 10, 12-minute songs with these great melodies and, a lot of thought put into their music. Bruce Dickinson on the piano, all sorts of great stuff. And it's just a bias. I just don't get it. You got to open your minds, people. You can't just spoon feed the masses what you like. It would be like me sitting on that board and saying, nope, Journey's never getting in, or REO Speedwagon's never getting in. Not fair. I would actually recuse myself from that group if it came to that. So that's about metal. So let's talk about prog rock, which are even more poorly represented. I look in that list. I see I see Russian. Yes, that's it. I mean, where's Jethro Tull? Where's Emerson, Lake and Palmer? Where's Asia? Where are groups like that? I'm sure there's more. Genesis, are they in? Oh, let me take a look. Okay, so I did overlook Genesis. They did get in 2010. Of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so they did have 5 people inducted. Tony Banks, Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, Steve Hackett, Mike Rutherford. Okay, so that's 3 prog rock bands. But dollars to donuts, they only got in because later in the 70s and into the 80s, Phil Collins took them in a more commercial direction. It's not because of their earlier prog rock stuff. So, I mean, what the hell? Jethro Tull. They have an amazing body of work from, I would say, 1969 to the early, even into the late 80s. How could you ignore that? And and their music is more melodic. It's not heavy, despite the Grammys giving them an award over Metallica, which I still laugh about. But here Metallica is in a rock hall, and they're still bitching about the fact that Jethro Tull stole an award from them. Gotta laugh. But then you look at a band like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who in the near future, I'll be doing a top 15 songs of them. How could you ignore the great piano virtuoso that Keith Emerson was? I mean, it's like saying, Tchaikovsky isn't as good as Metallica because they didn't sell it. Tchaikovsky's music didn't sell as many albums. I mean, come on. It's not all about album sales. You got to have some musical experts on that panel to see what they're playing. Analyze it from a player perspective. Like my buddy Pete Pardo can do, because he does play guitar. And he's got that Guitar Corner show that he puts on once a month, where they can go a little deeper in and analyze the actual music. So, in any event, now that I've ranted and bored you all to tears. I thought I would be happy that Judas Priest got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but for me, this is bittersweet. It's like, when my son was in the Pee Wee leagues in baseball, they gave out those little trinket trophies to all the kids for participation. It's basically what they were given here. That they weren't given the real thing, which really disappoints me. I hope the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is watching this, because yeah, you really laid an egg here. Well, total BS. Unreal. Don't know what else I was going to say, but you know what? I guess I'll wrap it up here. Thank you for watching. This is Jack Toledano for All or Nada, according to Jack. Please share your views with me in the comments section. Please subscribe if you haven't. I'm very happy that everybody has continued to subscribe. It just seems like ever since I put up that video of Martin Popoff and with me interviewing Martin Popoff on A Day in the Life, it seems like my subscribers have basically really grown. So I thank you all so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Again, if I miss anything that I said, I'll write it in the comment section later. But again, have a good one, everybody. Jack Toledano, speaking for All or Nada, according to Jack. Ciao.